Welcome back to the deep dive. Have you ever kicked off a project, really kicked it off with huge enthusiasm, maybe learning French or mapping out a business or even just starting that ambitious hobby only to find it sort of peters out when the initial buzz wears off?
Yeah, if that sounds familiar, this deep dive is definitely for you.
We're really getting into it today. The gap between meaning to do something and actually, doing it.
Exactly. And our source material here, it isn't just about feeling motivated. It gives us a really practical, actionable way to turn those big plans into, well, something real, something tangible.
We're looking at the art of following through. The core idea in the sources is that following through is vital because it stops that cycle of starting and stopping. You know, when things get tough or you get tired, or honestly, something shinier just catches your eye and poof, you're gone.
It's like that abandoned project graveyard we all have somewhere. The sources use this great, relatable example, the author's attempt at carving a wooden canoe. Started strong, loads of intention. But then the hands got sore, something else seemed easier, and suddenly it's just this, well, expensive bit of firewood taking up space.
Huh. Yeah, okay, so how do we stop our own goals turning into pricey firewood? The sources argue pretty strongly. Stop relying just on willpower. It's too fragile. We need to build something more robust.
Mhm.
And they use this fantastic analogy comparing successful follow-through to a super robot,
Mhm.
like Voltron or Power Rangers, where smaller bots fuse into one big, powerful unit.
That's such a great visual, and it really works. To execute consistently, you need all four parts locked in. The head, that's your focus. It keeps the goal clear, eyes on the prize, stops you getting sidetracked or letting the project balloon outwards.
Okay, focus is the head. Then you need the structure, the support. That's the
Yeah,
spine, self-discipline. This is what holds you up when it gets boring or tedious or you just flat out don't feel like it.
right. Discipline makes sure the work happens anyway, regardless of your mood. It's the engine, really.
Well, maybe the engine's the heart.
Yeah.
But we need movement too, right? The hands and feet, that's action.
Yes, action. Prioritizing the doing. Making actual visible progress. Getting your hands dirty. Moving it forward in the real world. Focus and discipline are great, but without action, it's all just theory.
And finally, the power source, the endurance, the heart, persistence.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't about that first burst of excitement. It's the stamina for the long haul, sticking with it even after the novelty's worn off.
Absolutely. Any big goal you see completed, it's always got those four working together. And the reason we usually bail is because one or more of those parts is weak.
Makes sense.
So our sources basically group the failure points into two main camps. Inhibiting tactics, these the sneaky ways we kind of trip ourselves up, and then the deeper psychological roadblocks.
Okay, let's dig into those tactics first, because, like you said, they can be sneaky. The sources mention that not all procrastination looks like, lounging around. One of the big ones is productive procrastination.
Oh, yeah. This one's insidious. This is where you absolutely convince yourself you're doing crucial work, but really, you're just circling the runway. You're stuck in endless planning.
Right, like researching every tiny detail, or tweaking the presentation font for the 10th time, or building complex spreadsheets for scenarios that might never happen.
Exactly. It feels good, right? You feel busy, you feel organized, like you're making progress, but actual execution, it's nowhere in sight. The example of Esther and her baking business really nails this.
Tell us about Esther.
Well, she spent her whole vacation researching things like the perfect humidity for different flours, analyzing dozens of competitor menus, designing this flawless logo. Her research was impeccable. But she never actually baked a single cake for a customer, not one. She was managing the idea of the business, not, actually running it.
Wow. Okay, I can see how that happened. It feels safer, too. If you stay in planning mode, you technically can't fail at the execution part.
And that ties right into one of the main psychological roadblocks, perfectionism born out of insecurity. That relentless drive for perfection, it often becomes a shield.
A shield against...
Against potential failure, against judgment. The sources mention Paul, who kept putting off applying for a big promotion for years because his resume was never quite perfect. Always one more skill to add, one more certification needed.
So he wasn't really aiming for success. He was actively avoiding the possibility of failing. The effort went into over-preparing, making the actual step feel impossibly huge.
Precisely. Striving for that unattainable perfection is kind of a strategic delay. You postpone the moment you might face criticism. You guarantee neither failure nor success, really. It protects the ego but stalls your progress.
Okay, so our present self is basically a saboteur. using productive procrastination and perfectionism to mess things up for our future self.
Right.
We need something strong to fight back, and the sources suggest temptation bundling.
Yes. This is such a clever hack for dealing with time inconsistency, that internal battle where your present self just wants the immediate reward, the nap, the cookie, the Instagram scroll.
While your future self is yelling about long-term goals.
Exactly. And the present self almost always wins that fight in the moment. So temptation bundling says, okay, let's bribe the present self.
Bribe it. How?
Strategically, you formally pair something you have to do but don't really want to like tedious work, or exercise with something you really enjoy and get instantly.
Like the canoe example.
Yeah.
The author started pairing the carving.
With listening to his absolute favorite albums, uninterrupted, something he only allowed himself while carving. Suddenly, the unpleasant task is linked to a high-value, immediate reward.
Ah, okay. It changes the calculation.
It totally does. Or, only letting yourself watch your favorite trashy TV show while you're on the elliptical. The boring workout becomes the necessary key to unlock the fun. Present self gets its immediate fix. Future self gets the benefit of the exercise. It's honestly incredibly powerful when you set it up right.
That does sound genuinely useful.
Okay.
Moving on to the next set of tools, the sources talk about creating a manifesto to help conserve willpower.
Right, because willpower, as we know, isn't infinite. It's like a muscle that gets tired, or maybe like a battery that drains with every decision you make, big or small.
So a manifesto helps with that.
Yeah, the idea is you create a clear, written set of rules, black and white rules, that pre-decide what you'll do in common situations where you might wobble. It takes the decision-making burden off your shoulders in the moment.
So when that temptation hits, should I work or scroll social media?
Mm-hmm.
The manifesto is already answered. No debate needed.
Exactly. And the sources offer some specific rules, protocols within that kind of structure. They number them, but the concepts are key. One really useful one is Rule 5, the 10-10-10 check. This is for when you're right there, feeling an urge or temptation.
Okay, 10-10-10. What does that involve?
You just pause. And you force yourself to think about the consequences of giving in across 3 different time frames. First, how will I feel in 10 minutes?
Okay, probably still feeling the pleasure, maybe a little guilt starting to creep in.
Probably. The temptation is satisfied. Second, how will I feel in 10 hours? By then, the pleasure's usually long gone. What's left is mostly regret, maybe annoyance at the work you didn't do.
Right. And the crucial one, how will I feel in 10 days?
Yeah, that's the kicker. In 10 days, that fleeting moment of pleasure is completely forgotten. But the cost, the broken discipline, the lost momentum that often feels much bigger, it might have even started a negative spiral. Thinking 10 days out really forces you to weigh the lasting impact against the short-term gain.
It cuts through our amazing ability to rationalize anything in the moment, doesn't it? Gives the future self a voice right now.
Exactly. And if that feels a bit too involved, there's an even simpler tool for just getting moving or staying moving. Rule 6. Just 10 minutes.
Ah, the 10-minute rule. How does that work?
It's brilliant for inertia. If you're dreading starting something, just commit to doing it for only 10 minutes. That's it. Or if you're doing something beneficial like working out and you want to quit.
Just tell yourself, okay, 10 more minutes?
Right. It leverages the fact that starting is often the hardest part. Once you're actually doing the thing, even for 10 minutes, the momentum often carries you much further. Stopping starts to feel like more effort than continuing.
And the flip side, if you want a distraction,
Wait 10 minutes before you indulge. Often, that little pause is enough for the intense urge to just fade on its own.
these rules all seem to touch on managing discomfort. Which brings us to a really core mindset the sources emphasize. Comfort with discomfort, or CWD.
Yes, this is fundamental. Following through almost always involves doing things that feel uncomfortable, new things, hard things, things that require sacrifice. Our instinct, when discomfort hits, is to retreat back to what feels safe and familiar.
Like Gerald and his startup. That example really hit home.
Yeah, exactly. Gerald hated his corporate job, right? But he bailed on his own startup after just a few months. Why? Because he couldn't handle the discomfort of cutting costs, having difficult conversations, working those long, uncertain hours. He lacked CWD.
So he retreated to the misery he knew, rather than face the uncomfortable path to something potentially better.
Precisely. Developing CWD means learning to recognize discomfort for what it is, often just a fear signal, understanding it's usually temporary and realizing it won't actually destroy you. It dials down the power that uncomfortable feeling has over your choices.
Allowing you to stay persistent, the heart of that super robot, even when things get rough.
You got it.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about designing our environment for better execution. Starting with something we all think we're good at, multitasking. The sources bring up Sophie Leroy's research on attention residue.
Ah, attention residue. It's such a critical concept for understanding why multitasking tanks our productivity. Basically, when you switch from task A, say, writing something important to task B, like quickly checking an email,
Yeah.
a part of your brain's processing power stays stuck on task A. Even though you physically switch tasks, your mind is still kind of chewing on the first one, which seriously drags down your performance on the new task, task B.
That completely explains why it feels like it takes ages to get back into deep work after even a tiny interruption.
It does. So the antidote is pretty brutal, but effective. Single tasking. One thing at a time. One browser tab open, maybe one program. Notifications totally off. Just pure focus.
And best just
Batching goes hand in hand. Group similar tasks together. So instead of checking email every 10 minutes, dedicate a specific block of time to process all your communications, emails, messages, calls at once. You stay in that mental mode, making you much more efficient than constantly switching contexts.
right, avoiding that switching cost. And all this saves that precious finite willpower we talked about, which links perfectly to the idea of leveraging our own laziness using the default effect.
Exactly. We are fundamentally wired to take the path of least resistance. It's just human nature. The sources mention the classic example of organ donation rates.
Oh yeah, where countries with opt-out systems have vastly higher donation rates than opt-in countries.
Precisely. Because opting out requires taking an action, while doing nothing means you're enrolled. The default wins.
So we need to make the good habits the default, the easy path.
Yes. Design your environment so doing the right thing requires minimal effort or willpower. Put the healthy snacks at eye level, hide the junk food, put your running shoes right by the door. If you want to practice guitar, leave it out on a stand, not packed away in its case under the bed.
And make the bad habits harder.
Make them require effort. Move those distracting apps off your phone's home screen, maybe into a folder. The sources reference that study with Hershey's Kisses. Just moving the candy jar a few feet away and making it opaque dramatically cut down consumption.
Because that tiny bit of friction, having to get up, walk over, take the lid off, makes you pause and consciously decide rather than just mindlessly grabbing one.
Exactly. Use friction against your own bad habits. It's quite clever.
Okay, one last major tool. How do we beat that analysis paralysis, that perfectionism loop where we just keep planning and never act? General Colin Powell's 40-70 rule.
Yes, Powell's rule. Pure, practical wisdom for making decisions, especially tough ones. He argued you should aim to gather no less than 40% of the information you think you need, but crucially, no more than 70%.
Okay, what's the danger zone outside of 70 to 70?
Well, act with less than 40% and you're basically just guessing, taking on too much risk. But, and this is key for follow-through, if you wait until you have more than 70%, you're almost certainly too late.
How so?
You've fallen into analysis paralysis. You're chasing diminishing returns on information. You've lost momentum, and the window of opportunity has likely closed. Someone else who acted with 60% information has already moved ahead.
So that 70% mark is where the extra time spent gathering data costs more than the value of the data itself.
Pretty much. The 40-70 rule forces you to act, trust your judgment and intuition for the remaining gap, and accept that you'll learn some things only by doing. That's where real progress happens.
Wow, okay. This has been incredibly practical. We've really unpacked what it takes to follow through, thinking about it like that super robot. Focus, discipline, action, persistence. And we've looked at tackling those roadblocks like perfectionism and procrastination with clever tools like temptation bundling and the 10-10-10 check.
And just as importantly, how to design our environment and workflow fighting attention residue with single tasking and batching and using defaults to make the right choices easier.
So to wrap up, let's leave everyone with a final thought to sort of chew on as they start putting this into practice. The sources make a really sharp distinction between goals and systems.
That's right. A goal is like a finish line, running the marathon, getting the degree. It's a specific outcome, but a system. A system is the process you follow regularly that leads to those outcomes. It's the daily run, the consistent study habit.
Goals give you direction, but systems are what actually get you there, especially when things inevitably go wrong or motivation dips.
Exactly. Goals are destinations. Systems are the vehicle that keeps moving forward day after day. So, the question to ask yourself is, right now, are you relying more heavily on hitting specific goals or on building reliable systems? And which approach do you think will truly carry you through the long game?